My name is Martha Ellison. At 73 years old, I never imagined I'd be telling this story. The one where my own children drove me to a nursing home, without even looking back. But what they didn't know was that I'd just inherited $7 million from my sister Iris, and I had no intention of being forgotten quietly. I had a plan that would change everything, starting with their precious visiting hours. Before we dive in, tell us where you're watching from, and if this story resonates with you, please make sure you're subscribed. I used to think that raising 3 children, 3 bright, capable, successful children, would earn me a gentle landing in old age. I pictured holidays filled with laughter, Sunday dinners, surprise visits just because. I thought that being a good mother would come full circle. I was wrong. It was a Tuesday morning in early March. I remember because the daffodils had just begun to bloom in my front garden, the same ones I'd planted 35 years ago after my husband left. I was kneeling in the dirt, gloved hands brushing soil away from the roots, when I heard it. The crunch of tires on gravel. Linda's silver Lexus, Daniel's polished black truck, and Carla's red convertible, all pulling into the driveway like a parade of judgment. My heart fluttered at the sight of them. All 3 of my children together on a weekday. That hadn't happened in years. I wiped my hands on my gardening apron and walked to the porch with a smile already forming. "Mom," Linda called, her voice carrying that too sweet tone she uses when she's about to deliver bad news in a ribboned box. "Can we talk?" We gathered in the living room, surrounded by decades of memories. The worn rug where they once played with blocks. The window seat where I used to read them stories. The fireplace mantel crowded with family photos. They sat across from me like a panel. Linda in her tailored navy suit, Daniel with his hands clasped too tightly, and Carla fidgeting with her phone. Linda was the first to speak. Of course she was. At 52, she was a corporate attorney and a master of rehearsed empathy. "Mom, we've been talking," she began, crossing one leg over the other, "and we think it's time we addressed your living situation." I stiffened. My living situation? "You're 73, Mom," Daniel added. "What if something happens? You're here alone. We live too far away to help quickly." Carla chimed in without lifting her eyes from her smartwatch. "And with your heart history, you really shouldn't be climbing stairs or doing yard work." I looked at them, these grown adults I had raised, protected, sacrificed for, and felt my chest tighten. "I appreciate the concern," I said, keeping my voice calm. "But this has been my home for 45 years. I'm fine." Linda leaned forward. "We've found a really wonderful place, Mom. It's called Silvercrest Haven. Just 20 minutes from me. Private apartments, medical staff on site, group activities, meals, everything you'd need." She slid a glossy brochure across the coffee table. On the cover, a group of elderly people smiled mid-bingo game, frozen in a moment of artificial joy. I didn't reach for it. "You've already visited it?" I asked. Daniel nodded. "We toured it last month. It's the best in the area." "And we put down a deposit," Carla said. "Your move-in date would be in 2 weeks." A strange ringing filled my ears. I looked around the room, the walls closing in. "You've already planned this?" I asked. Linda hesitated for half a second too long. "We just wanted to make things easier, Mom. For all of us." "And the house?" I asked, my voice quieter now. Daniel cleared his throat. "Well, the market's hot right now. If we list it soon, we can probably get a great return. That money would go a long way toward your care." "My care?" I echoed. "Is that what this is?" Carla's tone brightened, like we were discussing an exciting vacation. "Silvercrest is beautiful, Mom. You'll make new friends. There's a piano. In the main lounge. A little garden for residents. You'll love it." I didn't say a word. because in that moment I knew it wasn't about concern. It was about convenience. They had already made the decision. What I wanted didn't matter. I was simply the next box to be checked off in their carefully scheduled lives. "Have you talked to me about this before?" I asked, my voice suddenly sharp. "Or was this meeting the unveiling of your grand solution?" Daniel looked away. Carla's mouth opened, then closed. Linda remained composed. "We know it's a big change, but you'll be safer, and we'll still visit, of course." "When?" I asked. "What? When was the last time you visited, Linda? When you didn't need something, or weren't on your way to court?" She blinked. "That's not fair." "It's honest." The silence that followed was thick and brittle. "Mom, we're trying to do what's best," Daniel said softly. "No," I said. "You're doing what's easiest." The words hung in the air like a slap. None of them argued. Eventually, I stood. My legs trembled, but not from age, from restraint. "If you've already made all the arrangements, then what am I supposed to say?" I whispered. "Say you trust us," Carla said, her voice barely above a whisper. I looked at them, my 3 adult children, my achievements, my regrets, and I realized then that they didn't see me anymore. Not really. To them, I was a liability to be managed. "Fine," I said. "I'll go." They looked relieved. Carla smiled. Daniel sighed. Linda gave a small nod, like a verdict had been handed down and accepted. But what they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I had received a letter just a week before. A letter that changed everything. My sister Iris, gone suddenly after a stroke, had left me her entire estate, $7 million, and I hadn't told a soul, because I had plans of my own. Plans that would teach them the true meaning of visiting. Ours. 2 weeks later, I sat in the passenger seat of Linda's car, my hands folded tightly in my lap, staring out the window as my house disappeared behind me in the side mirror. The garden, the porch swing, the mailbox still painted with little sunflowers I'd added after my hip surgery last spring, all of it growing smaller until it was gone. Linda didn't say much. None of them did. Carla followed in her convertible. Daniel in his truck. 3 cars, 3 children, 1 mother being delivered. Silvercrest Haven, or Sunny Meadows as they marketed it, looked clean and modern from the outside. Glass doors, pale gray bricks. A cheerful sign with gold lettering beneath a row of plastic tulips and planters. But the moment the doors slid open and the chemical scent of industrial disinfectant met my nose, I knew what it truly was. This was not a home. This was storage. "Look, Mom," Carla chirped as we stepped inside. "Isn't this lobby nice? They have water with fruit slices." I didn't answer. I was too busy absorbing the details. The beige carpet. The walls painted a yellow that someone probably called sunshine, but reminded me of spoiled butter. The faint moaning of a television down the hallway. The sound of soft shoes shuffling over tile. The administrator, a woman named Megan Grant, met us with a bright smile and too many questions. Did I take any medications? How was my mobility? Was I comfortable using a walker? Could I identify the president? "I'm not an invalid," I said. She gave me the kind of nod reserved for polite dismissals and motioned to the elevator. "Let's get you settled into your new apartment." Apartment. It was a single room, 1 window, 1 twin bed, 1 sagging armchair, a bathroom the size of a closet with grab bars installed on both walls. The window looked out over the back parking lot. "This is cozy," Linda said, standing stiffly by the door. 3 boxes sat at the foot of the bed. My life, 67 years, reduced to 3 boxes and 2 suitcases. Gone were the quilts I'd stitched by hand for each of my grandchildren. Gone were the bookshelves my late husband built with his bare hands. Gone was the upright piano, the dining table, the worn red recliner I used to read in. All of it donated, sold, or thrown away with love and good intentions. "Don't worry, Mom," Daniel said. "You'll get used to it here." "I'm sure you'll make friends," Carla added, glancing down at her phone. Megan cleared her throat. "Well, we'll give you a few moments to get comfortable. Dinner is at 5:30, and tomorrow we'll show you the activities calendar." They were all leaving, already, like this was just a check-in at a hotel. Linda gave me a peck on the cheek. Daniel patted my shoulder like I was a coworker retiring early. Carla barely looked up from her texts. "We'll come visit soon," Linda said. "Real soon," Daniel echoed. "They didn't mean it. I knew it. So did they." "Don't forget to drink plenty of water," Carla said. "Hydration's important." I nodded, expressionless. And then they walked out. Not even a backward glance. I heard their cars start up in the parking lot below, one after the other. I stood at the window and watched their taillights vanish. The parking lot lights flickered, on, automatic and unfeeling. I sat down on the edge of the narrow bed. The silence was brutal. Not peaceful. Vacant. I allowed myself exactly 10 minutes to cry. Not because of the room or the loneliness, but because this was the confirmation I had hoped wouldn't come. They had done exactly what my sister Iris predicted. "You'll see," she had written in the letter enclosed with her will. "They'll leave you there like a crate in storage, and then they'll move on. That's what the world does with women like us, Martha. Women who gave everything. But you don't have to stay forgotten. Use the money. Build something. Or break something. Just don't fade away." $7 million. Iris never married, never had children, never apologized for living life on her terms. She had been a renowned biochemist, celebrated in journals, invited to conferences, respected. And now, she was gone. But she'd left. Me her legacy, her warning, her permission. That night I didn't sleep much. The mattress was stiff. The heater clicked every 15 minutes. But mostly, I lay awake replaying the past few months. The rushed phone calls, the skipped holidays, the way Linda had begun speaking to me like I was an elderly client instead of her mother. They thought they'd tucked me away where I could. No longer cause problems. They were wrong. The next morning, I dressed, brushed my hair, and walked into the common area for breakfast. The dining room was filled with people who looked like they'd given up waiting for anyone to remember them. A few smiled politely. Some stared blankly at their trays. Margaret sat near the window. She told me her daughters hadn't visited since Christmas, 3 months ago. Harold, across from me, kept looking toward the front door. "My boy usually comes Sunday mornings," he said, voice hopeful. "Just running late, I think." It was Tuesday. Sunny. Meadows wasn't a haven. It was a waiting room for people whose lives had already been packed away and forgotten. But I wasn't ready to be forgotten. Not yet. Over dry toast and powdered eggs, I made a decision. They had their plan. Now, I had mine. There's a rhythm to places like Sunny Meadows. A schedule that doesn't care whether you're lonely or longing. It simply hums forward. Efficient. Sterile. Impersonal. Breakfast at 7 activity hour at 10. Lunch at noon TV. Or crafts at 2. Dinner at 5:30. Silence by 8. Every day began the same, and every day ended the same too. The nights were the hardest. That's when the quiet became suffocating. You could almost hear the breath of sadness pressing down the hallways, weaving its way through doors that never opened for visitors. But during the day, I observed. I listened. I waited. And I learned. Margaret, whose room shared a wall with mine, cried softly some nights. She tried to hide it, but I heard. Her daughters had dropped her off after she slipped in the shower. That was 4 months ago. No visits since. Harold waited by the front window every Sunday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., dressed in a blazer that no longer fit his frame. His son hadn't come in 6 months. Mrs. Dunley used to read poetry aloud every afternoon in the Recol room, until the activities budget was slashed and the poetry books misplaced. It wasn't just abandonment by family. It was a larger kind of neglect, one that ran through the bones of this place. Peeling paint in the east hallway, leaking pipes in the laundry wing. One nurse for 22 residents during night shift. Overcooked. Vegetables that could be eaten without teeth. A garden patch out back that hadn't seen fresh soil in a year. This wasn't a home. It was an afterthought dressed up in good intentions and brochure smiles. The staff tried. Some of them, at least. Maria, a CNA with tired eyes, would stay after her shift to brush Margaret's hair. Robert, the night nurse, read chapters from a mystery novel to a blind veteran down the hall. They cared. But they were stretched thin, overworked, and underpaid. I began to ask questions, quietly. How many staff were assigned to each wing? How old was the building? Why was there only one van for transport? Who approved the meal budgets? The answers came in murmurs, whispers, shrugs. No one wanted to say too much, but the discontent ran beneath everything like a cracked foundation. So I did what Iris would have done. I asked for computer access. There was a terminal in the common room, tucked beside the fake fireplace. Supposedly for email and games, but the browser worked just fine. Most residents didn't bother with it. But I did. I began looking into Sunny Meadows. It didn't take long. Sunny Meadows was one of 3 facilities operated by a company called Golden Horizon Holdings, a small private elder care chain trying to look bigger than it was. A few articles, some court filings, state inspection reports buried behind login walls I knew how to work around. Golden Horizon had been bleeding money for 2 years. They'd expanded too fast, taken on high-interest loans, and were falling behind on payments. There had been 2 attempts at selling off properties. One fell through last fall, the other never closed. Lawsuits from vendors, turnover in top staff, and just 2 weeks ago, an open letter from a former executive warning about systemic failures in the company's care model. Perfect. I sat, back in the plastic chair, the click of keys still echoing in my ears, and let the idea bloom fully in my mind for the first time. I wouldn't just escape this place. I would own it. Buy it. Quietly. Completely. And then, I would do what my children never thought I could. Take control. Not just of my future, but of theirs. The following morning, I called a number I hadn't used in years. Charles Whitmore, my late sister's estate lawyer, was a quiet, sharp man, with the kind of voice that never rose above a whisper, but always demanded attention. Mrs. Ellison, he greeted after a few rings. I was wondering when I'd hear from you again. I'd like to schedule a meeting, I said. I need to acquire a business. There was a pause, but he didn't question it. Are you able to leave your residence? No, but I can arrange transportation. How soon? Tomorrow. I'll need it discreet. Charles cleared his throat softly. Of course. I'll have my assistant set everything up. Do you have a target business? In mind? I glanced around the computer room. The fake fireplace flickered faintly in the background. On the wall, a corkboard held a dozen thank you notes from family members who hadn't visited in months. Yes, I said. I want to buy the prison I've been placed in. The last time I wore lipstick was at Iris's funeral. But on the morning, I set out to buy a nursing home. I applied it with slow, steady hands. Coral rose. The shade she always said made me look sharp and unbothered. I wore my pearl earrings, too. The real ones, not the costume pair Carla once bought me for Christmas and claimed were vintage. No one at Sunny Meadows had seen me dressed like this, and I intended to keep it that way. I have a doctor's appointment, I told Megan, the administrator, when I requested a van into town. She didn't question it. Residents often had appointments. What was one more gray-haired woman leaving for a cardiology checkup? But I wasn't going to see a doctor. I was going to take back my life. Charles Whitmore's office was in an old, stone building downtown, the kind with creaky staircases and oil paintings of long-dead men in dusty frames. He greeted me in the hallway himself. No assistant, no fanfare. Just quiet confidence in an immaculate pinstripe suit. He looked me over and offered a small, knowing smile. "You look like a woman on a mission," he said. "I am," I replied. "Let's get started." We sat in a sunlit conference room with thick carpets and high-backed chairs that smelled faintly of lemon polish. I pulled out the printouts I'd made at the Sunny Meadows computer terminal. Financial reports, lawsuits, employee reviews, property values. I laid them out like puzzle pieces. "I want to buy Golden Horizon Holdings," I said. "All 3 facilities." Charles took his time reviewing the documents. He didn't ask me if I was serious. He didn't blink when I told him I wanted. The purchase made through a trust, Iris Haven, LLC, named quietly in honor of my sister, but not traceable to me directly. "I'd like to remain anonymous until the sale is finalized," I added. "Can that be done?" Charles leaned back, fingertips steepled. "With the state of their finances? Yes, a cash offer through an anonymous holding company will make them salivate. But Martha, why nursing homes? Why not real estate? Stocks? Tech?" I smiled. "Because I don't want to make money, Charles. I want to make change, and I want to start where I've been discarded." He gave a short nod, a faint glint of admiration behind his glasses. "Very well. Let's draw up a timeline." The next few weeks moved in quiet steps. Sunny Meadows continued its rhythm. Bingo Mondays, Soup Wednesdays. I played the part of the cooperative resident, polite, unobtrusive, always listening, never asking too many questions at once. Meanwhile, Charles and his team did what they did best. Golden Horizon Holdings didn't put up a fight. They were drowning in debt. The CEO practically fell over himself signing the paperwork once our offer hit his inbox. The purchase agreement covered all 3 of their facilities, including Sunny Meadows. By structuring the deal through Iris Haven, I remained invisible, just a faceless investor stepping in to support elder care reform. Charles delivered the good news 3 days after the ink dried. "You now own the entire chain," he said, "and you still have more than $5 million left." I felt something in me shift, not joy, not revenge, just power, quiet, earned, and deeply personal. I walked through Sunny Meadows the next morning with fresh eyes. It wasn't just where I slept anymore. It was mine. Every flickering light, every stained ceiling tile, every chart, every shift schedule, every half-hearted recreation class. I didn't want revenge on the staff. They were doing their best inside a failing system. I wanted to change the system itself. Slowly, thoroughly. But first, I needed to send a message. To the families. To my children. To everyone who treated their elders like calendar obligations. 2 days later, a letter was drafted and mailed to every registered family contact across all 3 facilities. It came from the desk of Megan Grant, Administrator Sunny Meadows, written in calm, diplomatic language carefully crafted to conceal its origins. Subject: Updated Family Engagement Policy, dear. Families, we are writing to inform you of an important update to our resident visitation policy, effective 2 weeks from the date of this letter. After careful observation and resident feedback, our new policy will provide unrestricted visiting hours to families who visit their loved ones at least twice per week. Restricted visiting hours for those visiting less than twice per week. Sundays from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. only. This policy is designed to encourage more consistent and meaningful family engagement, ensuring that our residents feel supported, loved, and connected. We understand that this may require scheduling adjustments, and appreciate your commitment to your loved one's emotional well-being. Sincerely, Megan Grant Administrator, Sunny Meadows. I watched the post van roll out of the facility's lot that afternoon, carrying the letters to my children and hundreds more just like them. No signatures from me, no clue that I had written the first draft. Myself, but they'd feel it. The world was about to learn something important. It costs nothing to visit your mother. But ignoring her, well, that now had a price. It started with the mail. 3 days after the letters went out, the front desk staff at Sunny Meadows were inundated with phone calls. Angry ones, confused ones, some bordering on desperate. Most came from adult children and spouses who hadn't stepped foot in the facility in weeks, sometimes months. Suddenly, everyone cared. The halls buzzed with the hum of reawakened guilt. And I simply watched. I sat in the reading nook with Margaret as she flipped through a wrinkled gardening magazine. Harold was nearby, polishing his Sunday shoes, on a Tuesday. "Something's happening," Margaret whispered, leaning toward me. "Maybe it's spring cleaning season," I replied, smiling into my teacup. The real spring cleaning was already underway, just not the kind that involved mops or dusters. I was cleaning out complacency, entitlement, neglect, and oh, how quickly. The dustpan filled up. The first to arrive was Linda. 3 days after the letter reached her doorstep, she burst into my room without knocking. Her designer heels echoed sharply against the linoleum, and in her hand, she waved the policy letter like a warrant. "Mother," she barked. "What is this?" I looked up from my knitting. "What's what, dear?" "This letter. This nonsense about restricting visiting hours. Did you get one too?" I nodded gently. "Yes, I believe it was slipped under my door. Very official looking." She stared at me. "Hard. And you're okay with this? With being told your children can only visit for 2 hours a week, unless we report in like clockwork?" "Well," I said, keeping my tone light, "it doesn't seem to have stopped you from visiting today." Her lips parted in offense. "That's not the point. This is outrageous. It's discriminatory. I've already contacted a lawyer. We'll sue, if we have to." "Sue whom exactly?" "Sunny Meadows. Or the parent company. Whoever's behind this nonsense." I set my yarn aside. "I see. So, you're upset because you might have to visit more often in order to visit freely?" "That's not the issue," she snapped. "It's about principle." "Ah," I nodded solemnly. "The principle of being reminded to care." Linda glared, but she was rattled. She hadn't expected resistance, certainly not from me, and especially not cloaked in sweet smiles and gentle questions. "You're being manipulated," she said, softer now. "Don't you see? They're controlling access to you." I raised my eyebrows. "Is that what this feels like to you, being kept away?" "Yes," she exclaimed. I waited a beat, then said quietly, "Imagine how that's felt for me, for the past 3 months." Linda's face turned to stone. She said nothing, just stared. Her phone buzzed, and without missing a beat, she picked it up. "Yes? I'm in a meeting." "No, move the deposition. Tell them it can wait." I watched her spin lies into her phone while standing in the room of a woman she hadn't visited in 5 weeks. When she hung up, her confidence had crumbled just a little more. "I'll be back," she muttered, gathering her bag. "Don't sign anything without showing me first. And don't trust everything you hear." "Of course, dear," I said. "Thank you for coming." She left without saying goodbye. Daniel was next. He came the following morning, shoulders hunched like he was preparing for war but hoping for peace. "Hi, Mom," he said, awkwardly patting my hand. "Daniel, how nice of you to visit again so soon." He gave a sheepish chuckle. "Yeah. Well, I figured I'd beat the Sunday crowd. You hear about the new policy?" I did. "It's causing a stir. Carla, called me crying. Why is she crying? She feels like she's being punished. Is she being punished? He sighed and dropped into the chair beside my bed. I don't know. It just feels extreme. Does it? Mom, come on. You know we've got responsibilities, jobs, families. It's hard to come more than once a week, even when we want to. But you didn't come once a week. You came twice in 3 months. He flinched. I'm sorry, he said. I'm not asking for every day, I replied softly. But if I mattered, wouldn't you have found more time? He looked away, blinking. Is this your way of making us feel guilty? No, I said gently. This is their way of reminding families that time is a choice. He sat there for a long time, staring at the carpet. When he left, he hugged me for the first time in years. Carla came that weekend. She cried the moment she walked through the door. I didn't know, she whispered. I didn't realize it had been so long. I took her hands. They were trembling. You were busy. I understand. No, you don't. Because I wasn't just busy. I was avoiding this. I hate hospitals, nursing homes. They scare me. I thought coming here would mean facing that you're older. That one day you won't be here. I said nothing. What could I say? She sobbed into my shoulder like she was 5 again, and I held her, not like a scorned mother, like a mother who still loved, because I did. The next week, the facility changed. The halls filled with visitors, some annoyed, some apologetic, most confused. The rec room buzzed with voices. Residents smiled. The staff walked a little lighter. I heard Margaret whisper to another resident. All of a sudden, we're popular. But my children didn't yet know the full truth. They didn't know the woman they were trying to negotiate with, threaten, or weep to, was the one who signed the policy into being. They were playing chess with their mother, believing she was just a pawn. But I was the one who had moved the queen. And I was just getting started. The moment had to be right. Not loud. Not dramatic, just undeniable. I waited until all 3 of them showed up at once, on a Sunday, of course, squeezed neatly into the newly restricted 2 to 4 p.m. visiting window. For people so outraged by the policy, they had all adapted remarkably well to it. Carla arrived first, flowers in hand. Daniel came next with a paper bag of muffins. Linda was last, blazer sharp and lips tighter than a banker's purse string. We sat in the common room, the one with the fake fireplace and mismatched armchairs. I had reserved the space with Megan's quiet blessing. No interruptions, no wandering ears. Just a mother and her 3 children, finally together again. I wanted to talk, I said, folding my hands. Properly. Linda was already scanning the room like she expected hidden cameras. About what? The new policy, I said. About all of this. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. We've already said we think it's unfair, Mom. Punitive, Linda corrected, and frankly, discriminatory. We've started contacting other families, you know. Class action may be an option. Carla gave her a look. Can we not make this a war zone, please? I smiled gently and stood, reaching into my purse. I suppose, I said, pulling out a folder. If we're going to talk about policy, you should know who wrote it. I handed Linda the folder first. Her fingers hovered like she expected it to burn. She opened it and froze, then blinked. Hard. What is this? Daniel leaned over her shoulder. Wait, is that the purchase agreement? Carla looked from them to me, confused. What's going on? Iris left me her entire estate, I said quietly. $7 million. No one knew. Not even you. Silence. I used a portion of it to purchase Golden Horizon Holdings, which includes Sunny Meadows, this facility, and the 2 others like it. I own them, through a trust. Linda dropped the folder like it had bitten her. You're joking. I shook my head. No, I did what you never expected me to do. You bought a nursing home? Daniel asked, stunned. I bought the system that tried to throw me away, I replied. And I changed the rules. Carla blinked tears. You wrote the letter? I wrote the policy, I said. I asked that it be distributed anonymously. I didn't want power to be the reason people visited. I wanted choice to be. Linda stood abruptly. This is absurd. You're not equipped to run a business like this. You didn't even tell us. I didn't need to, I replied calmly. You weren't asking me anything else lately, were you? You were deciding for me. She opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. You should have consulted us. We're your family. And when, exactly, I said softly, did you last consult me? Carla broke down then, shoulders shaking, face buried in her hands. I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't know how bad it was. I didn't realize. Daniel stood silently, staring out the window. The guilt poured off him in waves. Linda stepped forward. All right, you've made your point. You have control. Now what? What's the end game here? There's no game, Linda, I said. Just consequences. I want to help, she insisted. Let me take over the financials. You shouldn't be managing millions. No, I said firmly. She blinked. Excuse me? I said no. This isn't yours to manage. This is mine. For the first time in a long time, I'm not asking for permission. Linda looked as if I'd slapped her. I stepped closer, my voice low and even. You all had a choice. You chose convenience. I chose dignity. Now I'm giving you a new choice. Follow the rules like everyone else, or keep your visits restricted. That's it. Daniel turned. You're serious. Deadly. Carla stood and crossed the room. She hugged me, tears still wet on her cheeks. You're amazing, she whispered. I'm so sorry I treated you like a burden. You're not the only one, I said gently. Linda gathered her things, jaw clenched. We'll talk about this again. You're welcome to try, I replied, sitting back down. She left first. Daniel followed after a long, tight hug. Carla lingered a little longer, brushing my hair from my face like she used to when she was little and thought I was magic. And maybe, just maybe, I still was. That night, I walked the halls differently. Residents smiled at me, some now aware, some still blissfully unaware of who I truly was. It didn't matter. I wasn't doing this for recognition. I was doing it because I had to. For myself. For Margaret. For Harold. For every parent made to feel like yesterday's inconvenience. I had been underestimated, shelved, and silenced. But not anymore, and certainly not again. For 3 weeks, there was silence. Not a single call. No weekend drop-ins. No cheerful texts or emails from Carla. No stern legal emails from Linda. Just stillness. And strangely, it didn't break me. In fact, it clarified everything. I had mistaken proximity for care, phone calls for connection, obligations for love. But the absence gave me room to breathe. And in that breath, I found something I hadn't tasted in years. Peace. Not the kind that comes from being alone, but the kind that comes from no longer chasing people who never turned around to meet you halfway. During those weeks, I focused on the residents. I started a reading circle in the library, held every Wednesday at 3 AM. We read classics and mysteries and sometimes just sat together with tea. Margaret began writing poetry again. Harold stopped wearing his Sunday suit only on Sundays. Other residents asked for help drafting letters, to family or FaceTiming grandchildren they'd never seen. I began quietly raising wages for the night shift nurses. Maria got a paid weekend off for the first time in 4 years. We installed new heaters, ordered proper vegetables, repainted the east hallway in soft green. I didn't do it loudly, but change never has to shout. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon, Carla appeared in the doorway of the library circle. She was holding a yellow notebook and a trembling smile. "Hi, Mom," she said softly. "Can I talk to you?" Margaret raised her eyebrows and winked as she slipped out, and I followed Carla to the garden patio. We sat beneath the trellis, where my late-blooming roses were just starting to open. Carla cleared her throat. "I know we haven't been here. We needed time. I needed time." I waited. "I've been seeing a therapist. So have Linda and Daniel. Separately. Together, too. It's been hard." She opened the notebook. "This is our new visit schedule. We'll rotate weekdays, one of us every other day. Linda will take Fridays and every second Sunday. Daniel's covering evenings when work allows. I'll be here Mondays and Wednesdays." She handed it to me like it was a peace offering. I took it slowly. "We also talked about the money," she added. "We don't want it. We know we don't deserve to touch a penny of what Aunt Iris gave you. We were never entitled to it." I studied her face. Red-rimmed eyes. Tired. Yes, but sincere. "We just want you," she whispered. Daniel came the next day. He didn't bring muffins this time. He brought pruning gloves and helped me trim the rose bushes. He didn't talk much at first, just worked quietly beside me. "Dad would have loved this place," he finally said. "Now, the way it is now." I nodded. "He'd have hated what it used to be." Daniel exhaled. "I was angry when I found out. Embarrassed, too. That I didn't see it. That I let Linda do all the deciding. You weren't supposed to let her. You were supposed to speak. For yourself," he nodded slowly. "I am now." And he was. Linda came last. She didn't arrive with folders or threats or tight-lipped tension. She arrived with a chessboard and a bottle of wine. "You still play?" she asked, setting it up on the table in the courtyard. I smiled faintly. "I've had a lot of practice lately." Mid-game, she paused. "You made me look at myself. Really look. And it wasn't pretty." I moved my bishop and didn't respond. She stared at the board. "You were never weak, were you?" "No," I said. "You just stopped paying attention." She reached into her bag and pulled out a slim, leather-bound notebook. "I started journaling," she said. "Therapist's suggestion. The first entry was titled, 'What if I had stayed longer?'" I looked at her, and for the first time, in years, I saw my daughter. Not the executive, not the decision-maker, just the little girl who once made me pancakes shaped like hearts on Mother's Day. I nodded toward the wine. "Pour," I said. "You're going to need it. I never go easy on rookies." She laughed. Genuinely. Eventually, I lifted the visitation restriction. For them, and for many others. But only for those who truly showed up. Who stayed. Who weren't just reacting to shame or obligation, but offering something real. Sunny Meadows changed more than its rules. It became a pilot program for what elder care could look like when it was built on dignity, not delay. When visits weren't drop-ins, but rituals. When love wasn't outsourced to underpaid staff, but shared. We renamed it too, Iris Haven. Not just for my sister, but for what the iris flower means. Hope, wisdom, and valor. The values of aging done right. 1 year later, We held a community garden fair on the lawn. The local mayor came. Reporters, too. Families wandered through booths decorated with resident-made crafts and homegrown vegetables. Carla helped organize it. Daniel managed parking. Linda gave a speech. I watched from the shade, sipping lemonade, legs crossed beneath a wide sun hat. Margaret sat beside me, grinning. You did it, you know. Did what? Built something new. Not just for you, for all of us. I squeezed her hand. I didn't do it alone. No, she said. But you were the one who stopped waiting for someone else to fix it. That evening, as the sun dropped behind the hedges and volunteers packed away folding chairs, Carla brought me a worn photo album. Remember this? She asked. Inside were pages of us at the beach, Linda with pigtails, Daniel missing his front teeth, me, in a floppy hat, laughing with arms around all three of them. You were always there for us, she whispered. I touched the edge of the page. And now? She looked up, eyes shining. Now we're here for you. My story didn't end in a nursing home. It began again, with boundaries, with clarity, with courage I didn't know I still had. They tried to box me in, but I bought the box and opened every window. Not just for me, for every woman told to sit quietly while the world moved on without her.